and thank you for being with us. So what we're really going to do here is go deeper on some of the sections which they've contributed to you and get an overall view on the thematic of the guide. So having said that, welcome again. And as we know, this guide is actually meant to the deep dive on multiple marketing levers which are contributing to growth hacking. And we've gone through areas around varied consumer cohorts. We've spoken about differential market identification, balancing short-term and long-term, rebuilding brand differentiation, brand communication, innovation, and distribution. So these are some of the areas that are captured. So we'll touch upon some of them within it. Let me start with the most interesting one and the one which all of us are dabbling endlessly with, which is about addressing varied consumer cohorts, right? And for that, Puneet, I have to start with you for all the right reasons, okay? Given the understanding you can offer from a consumer lens, I'm going to sort of put you in the spotlight right away and ask you something very crucial, okay? So, you've mentioned in your piece that 42% of India's top 5 earning households live in rural India. I'm repeating it. 42% of India's top 5% earning households live in rural India. So in which sense, how should premium brands be approaching this contradictory demography? Yeah, and how does one really address that category effectively as a brand?
So, Monica, it's not actually contradictory in a sense because rural is where we've always believed that there are pockets of rural which are reasonably wealthy and which are kind of, driving consumption for products and services. So, for example, there could be parts in Maharashtra where there is a significant concentration of Mercedes. We've all heard about these anecdotes, and this is not here and now today, but this is over years that we've heard about these anecdotes as such. So essentially it is about discovering the concentration of these high net worth individuals in rural India and targeting those specific geographies or microclusters in a manner that is efficient. And it is therefore about investing in and identifying where are these people located. They could be in rural Punjab. A great example is the likely cricket captain over the next couple of years, Shubman Gill. He comes from a rural context as such, and he grew up learning cricket by having all the people working in the farm bowling to him and fielding for him whilst he was practicing batting. So clearly there is a wealth concentration in rural which is in no manner contradictory. Also what is happening is because of the advance of digital, as also this constant migration both towards and also at times carrying thoughts and influences backwards, there is also the expansion of the perimeter of urban from a mental space standpoint, and therefore we are seeing not just wealth being residing there, but in a sense similarities of aspirations that are being created, and therefore creating an opportunity, a platform for brands to kind of activate there.
Got it. Makes so much sense. I'm going to actually come back to you a little later and ask you to share the same in context of Gen Zs from rural. But let me first go around a little bit and let me put something very provocative to you, Upali. You've put out a very interesting statement in your piece, and you've said consumer cohorts are passé. Yeah, you say consumer cohorts are passé. So what is the new way to look at consumers? What do you think?
Yeah, so consumer cohorts, when we define them in the typical way of who they are, Gen Z, millennial, mothers, teens, silvers, is not a consumer cohort. It's date of birth and life stage, right? We need to look at consumers from what they do rather than who they are. And there are several ways of looking at it. And so for example, how the consumer interacts with your brand or with your product. Someone's downloaded the app, but not registered. Someone's put something in shopping cart, but has not checked out. Someone's researched. So that's how we look at it. Okay, so that's behavioral on how they interact with the brand, how they interact with the category. It's also in terms of the value they bring to your product or your brand. And value is not just about an LTV or a lifetime value or how much revenue they give you. You might have a bunch of consumers who are advocating for your brand, but they might be buying very less, right?
Sure.
But they're very, very valuable, and the way you talk to them is different.
Correct.
Another way of looking at them is very need based. Now, the same product or the same service can serve very different needs to very different people. It can serve different needs to the same person in different situations and
Right.
contexts, right? Like sometimes I walk into a Starbucks because I want to catch up with 5 people who I haven't met before. My need is different. Versus sometimes, I am tired of everything that I do every day and I just want some me time and I want to go sit there in a corner and spend 1 hour by myself. So, in both those instances, how the brand talks to me, not just in terms of communication, but even in terms of maybe how they design the floor, in terms of, the offers or the product, needs to be very different. And that's where we need to look at it. And I mean, throughout we've been hearing a lot about data, about technology, about analytics. And another way of looking at it is through predictive data. Through patterns, if I know that if this consumer is going to take this action next, then how do I connect? How do I develop an intimacy with that consumer? So those were my thoughts.
Fantastic. So we actually touched upon, the rural consumer. We touched upon a different way of looking at consumers. So Nitya, I'm going to come to you. And obviously with the expertise and the deep understanding you have in terms of traditional and digital channels and, you run it at a much larger scale across markets. So, what I think, I want you to tell us more about is how does one balance these different mediums for different consumer cohorts and yet ensure there's effectiveness that's maximized, right? So how do you do that effectively?
Thanks, Monica. I'm going to build on something that Upali touched upon, right?
Can you get your mic? Yeah.
Is this better?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to build on something that Upali touched upon, right? Which is that legacy ways of looking at consumers and of looking at media is becoming quite inadequate in the way that the whole ecosystem is evolving, right? So let me give you a couple of examples, right? Pretty much everybody who's done anything in marketing over the last 15 years is used to describing affluent consumers as NCCS-A, right? But if you look at data today, NCCS-A is about 40% of urban India. And that's very woefully inadequate if you really want to reach truly affluent consumers, right? If you're selling Mercedes, you're not selling it to 40% of urban India, right? So some of these legacy definitions are becoming inadequate, and so it's important that we start looking at more nuanced definitions of who it is that is really buying our products. The other thing that's becoming inadequate is sort of looking at media as traditional and digital, TV and internet, right? Because there is now so much overlap, right? Look at connected TV. It's a large screen, but it uses the internet to stream entertainment, right? If you looked at connected TV 18 months ago, you could pretty much use it as a surrogate for early adopters of tech and affluent homes. But if you look at connected TV today, you'll see that about 10% of your connected TV impressions actually serve in rural India.
Do you want to
Right?
quickly touch upon how Godrej is doing it here,
Right.
just to bring it alive?
So yeah, just to bring that alive, right? So when we're looking at this, we're no longer looking at traditional and digital. Okay, we're looking at what is one-to-one, what is one-to-many, what is on a large screen, what is on a small screen, and what is on no screen, right? And then seeing for each consumer task, right, what combination of this really makes sense, right? So if I'm selling household insecticides, do I need to worry about gender? Because mosquitoes bite everybody and everybody in the family is worried about mosquitoes, right? Versus if we're looking at our sexual wellness category, do we really want to be on a screen where the entire family is sitting and watching, right? So those are the kind of ways in which we're looking at this a little differently.
I'm so glad you put it the way you put it. I like the fact that you're saying it's one-to-one sometimes, it's one-to-many sometimes, and it's no screen sometimes. I really think that makes so much sense. And on that note, Nishant, I'm going to bring you in because there is something very interesting, which sort of will help you take the lead from where Nitya's just left it, right? Which is in the, when you're trying to real time manage the one-to-one, one-to-many angle, right? It sort of precedes intelligence over instinct, right? You really do need to have more intelligence working for you versus just instinct, right? So, in which sense, how do you think CMOs can effectively make that transition and use the intelligence effectively?
Sure. So I'm going to use a buzzword that, like, I think all of us are bored of is AI. And the reason I'm saying that is, see, we all have access to MarTech data and we all have access to AdTech data. And AI now, if you feed these data along with the segments, and as you mentioned, right, like you have segments and products which have different uh, realities or the way you go to market with them. And you create a twin of your customer. And today you can actually ask the twins, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Does this make sense to you? And then you can further split it down. Like, this is a potential customer. What do you think about it? This is a customer who has never bought from me after buying something from me 1 year ago. And you can ask them like, hey, does this ad appeal to you? And will this ad make me buy you again? And that is where you're taking the instinct away and you're actually, right, letting AI twin of your customer tell you exactly what is going to work and what is not going to work, which is fascinating once you build that and put it in action.
Fantastic. So actually, just taking that forward a little more, Ravi, with you, all right? So since we are really talking about intelligence, I mean, personalization is, so hand in hand with, how you leverage intelligence for personalization, right? So on that note, what I want to understand from you is how can CMOs balance automation at scale whilst maintaining personalization effectively and using all the intelligence they have?
Yeah, I mean, to put it simply, I think automation versus authentic personalization is one of the key challenges of modern times that marketers are facing. We are still writing the playbook as we go along. I don't think so I have the exact answers, but in my experience, personalization will help you build deeper engagement as long as in my terminology, I call the 3 Rs. They are relatable, they are relevant, and they are respectful.
Okay.
And why I say that is essentially, I think one of the advices is that you use AI to segment, but my suggestion is don't over segmentize. Use AI to build maybe micro segments on basis on behaviors rather than just pure demographics. That would be one sort of suggestion to balance it. The second key point will be to make it useful and not invasive. Imagine an AI like a personal concierge who's helping you, do useful tasks rather than just being a robot which has all your data. I think that's where I think the balance is. And thirdly, I think one has to move on humanizing the automation layer.
Right.
I think that's really, really critical. Users are not, dumb. They understand what is AI and what is not, and use AI to sort of enhance their experience, but not replace the human,
Experience.
experience and the brand voice.
Right.
And I know a lot of people saying, hey, we are using AI to create content and scripts, but I suggest you still need a human copywriter to sort of understand the nuances, the context, to sort of have the natural tones rather than just sound like AI. So those are sort of my suggestions.
Very interesting. You spoke about the 3 Rs, and you've also spoken about another 3 Rs, which, if I am getting it right, it's reach, return, retention. Right?
Absolutely.
Now, that's an interesting framework where we're talking about reach, return, retention. But the twist here is we're talking about reach, return, retention in context of e-commerce as a platform, right? Which now is a full funnel platform versus just a performance driven platform. So how does one apply a framework like this? And what is it that a CMO should be, how is it that a CMO should be, sort of deploying it?
Sure. Thanks, Monica. So I think what every CMO needs to realize and understand, and I think people have alluded to this through the course today, is that consumer journeys are changing. Right?
Yes.
Consumer journeys are also starting today on e-commerce platforms.
Right.
Look at your own buying behavior, right? Or I'll reflect on what I did, right? I needed to buy an AC recently. What did I do? I went on to Flipkart. I read reviews. I looked at the product description. I checked the offers. Being a value conscious consumer, yes, I'm SECA, but I'm still value conscious, right? I did walk into an offline store, compared what am I getting there,
Right.
did my comparisons between the two channels, and still took the decision to buy on Flipkart, right? So consumer journeys are changing. They're starting off also from commerce platforms, right? That's the first thing I think CMOs really, really need to understand, right? The second is a lot of the commerce platforms today also are giving you tools to engage with consumers from an
Yes.
awareness building perspective, right? Be it through video-led engagement, be it through live commerce. Some of these things are still evolving, but
Correct.
it's available, right? And the third really is you have measurement to back it up, right? Doesn't necessarily need to be ROI, but hey, what's the reach that I could get on your platform, right? What are the new to brand consumers who came after I ran a particular awareness or a brand building campaign, right? Or how have my top of funnel metrics moved or my search volumes moved by doing these kind of brand engagement campaigns, right? So that's where I think it needs to move, right? You need to keep changing, evolving, right? And that's going to be the success.
Fantastic. Cool. So far what we've done is we've spoken about the consumer lens, we've spoken about technology, we've spoken about distribution in a very different way. So we obviously have to talk about markets and market differentiation, right? Otherwise, it just isn't a complete way of looking at growth hacking. So Nitya, I'm going to pull you back in there. Okay. The whole, bit about applying differential market identification strategies, right, is essentially where you how agile you are to pick up consumer shifts and see patterns in markets, and then sort of plan your media investments accordingly. So what is the right approach, especially because we are looking at high powered growth all the time. It's not that we can have the upper funnel and then the middle funnel and then the lower funnel play out. So how do you do it?
I think couple of things that have helped us, right? One is to start looking at data a little more creatively, right? Not rely always on traditional panels and traditional measurement to pick up trends ahead of the curve, but to really start looking at, on the one hand, look at really fast moving data, because e-com, quick com, they may be small parts of traditional businesses, but they can give you very quick reads into shifts that are happening as far as trends are concerned. Looking at search, right? Because people may not be buying online, but they're still looking for information online, right? At the other end of the spectrum, it's also, I think, important, A, to meet consumers regularly, because they will tell you the truth more than any data will ever tell you. And B, also look at wider, economic surveys and research data that the larger environment puts out, which may not be specific to marketing or to media, okay, but can offer surprisingly rich insights. So for example, we play in air fresheners as a category, right? Now, traditionally, you would go look and say, okay, let me go to where there are people with discretionary income, because, hey, air fresheners is a little bit of a vanity category, right? And so you look at traditional metrics like affluence, disposable income, so on and so forth, right? But one of the things that really matters is actually how dense houses are.
Sure.
That leads to odor inside the house, right? So if you want to identify markets and consumers differentially, you have to look at data differentially.
Interesting.
Right.
Very interesting. So I think now that we've touched upon some of the key parts of the report, and I'm going to also, sort of be conscious about the fact that we have just another few minutes left, I'm going to go around with one very important question, which I need all of you to participate with me on. And I'm going to start with you. All right. So, the question for all of you, you get the most time to think about your answer and not to repeat what they say. Okay, so if you had to recommend just one growth hack, okay, that every CMO should implement, irrespective of their industry or their life stage, what would that be? and why? A very quick, short one.
Little philosophical, but be a chameleon. Be
Say
open.
that again?
Be a chameleon.
Wow, I love
Right?
that.
Be open to change, right? And adapt. I think whether it's consumers, whether it's business, whether it's technology, it's evolving so fast. You need to adapt quickly.
So that's the growth hack that you recommend? Be a
Yes.
chameleon? Opali, what about you?
Synthesis. We heard about many things, right? We said data, technology, consumer, distribution, etc. None of it works in silos. All of it comes together. So, as a marketer, you have to be a generalist and you also have to be a specialist. Like Amit said, you have to be a scientist and you have to bring it all together. That's how it works.
Pretty good. Okay, Ravi?
I think, pardon me for being a little old school, but trust-based marketing. I think we really underestimate the power of referrals, where you trust your recommendations from friends and family much more than an ad. If there's a way that you can capture those conversations and build referrals within your marketing hack, I think that's a really interesting way to.
Wow. So we've heard
approach it.
chameleon, we've heard synthesis, we've heard trust-based marketing. Puneet, what's yours?
Well, in addition to what has already been said, communicate to them with in their context as such, and the user contexts are going to be very different by different types of consumers. Communicate with them in their context.
Okay. Nitya.
I'd say be evidence-led. There's a lot of cool stuff out there, but be very, very evidence-led on what really works in delivering business value. And if there's no evidence, build your own, do proof of concepts.
Give a quick example. When you say evidence-led, what would you mean?
Be data-led, be scientific about whether something's worked or not, right? So if you've done something, go back and look at, did it deliver value? Did it grow the brand? Did it grow the business? Right? So be evidence-led, because otherwise there's a lot of cool stuff to do in marketing. You'll never finish.
Fantastic. Nishant, what's yours?
So I was leading with evidence-led, but you just took it. So I'm gonna flip the answer and I'm gonna go now with truly understand the anatomy of a deal in terms of we do a lot of things in marketing, and right now we are able to capture a lot of those things. The question to ask is what is truly moving the needle in terms of your customer preferences, right? Like what is truly making them purchase? They have seen 10 of your ads. Did all the 10 ads impact their decision to buy your product?
So what's that one word for it?
Anatomy of a deal. Understand
Anatomy of a deal. Wow. Does anyone want to try and recap for us the 5 hacks we heard on the panel? You get a prize. 5 hacks you heard on the panel. Lovely. Go for it. Please get the mic to her. We heard 5 very interesting hacks, and we're going to give the lady a prize for sure, assuming you'll be right.
Yeah,
Yes.
So, hi, my name is Pragya. So, the first one was adapt and be open. Then it was about trust-based marketing. Referrals and all are obviously important. So, word of mouth and all of that. Then context, communicating in specific context, personalization.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, then being data-led, evidence-led, as Nitya pointed out. Then one was about synthesis, which I think Weber was talking about online, offline. Journey starts somewhere, ends somewhere. So being able to see consumers as a whole, I think that's what you meant by synthesis. And then one was anatomy, which Nishant.
Superb. You did it. That's a 10 on 10. Well done. Please make sure we give her a prize. Okay, so on that note, I am going to quickly wrap up with a hack, which I'm only representing from the book, which is a piece which Kedar Lele wrote and said something very, very, very powerful. The hack is balanced duality. He said balanced duality in context of fragmented consumer identities, be it rural, urban, be it short-term, long-term, and essentially straddle dualities at all times. That's a very important hack as well, and you could add that to your list. And I hope you enjoyed this conversation. I hope this adds value. The QR code is there. Do ensure you scan it and download the report and make the most of it. Thank you, panelists, for your time, and this was a fantastic discussion.
Thank you.